The first few weeks after Emily Carter's marriage ended felt like walking through a thick fog she couldn't escape. She lived in a small townhouse in Portland with her 10-year-old son, Liam, and every morning she woke up with the same heavy silence around her. The house looked normal, sunlight coming through the curtains, the smell of coffee in the kitchen, but inside her heart everything felt broken. She tried to move through her days the way she used to, but nothing felt the same. Emily wasn't the type of person who cried easily. But after the separation, she found herself breaking down at the smallest things. A song on the radio, an empty side of the bed, a photo tucked inside a drawer. She didn't let Liam see her in those moments. She'd wait until he was asleep or busy with homework. She believed she had to be strong for him, even if she didn't feel strong at all. But children always notice more than adults expect. Liam had seen the way she moved slower in the mornings, how she stared at the stove while dinner cooked, as if her mind was far away. He noticed how her voice grew quieter when she answered calls, and how sometimes she forgot to laugh at his jokes. Still, he didn't push her. Instead, he became more gentle, more caring. Sometimes he'd sit beside her while drawing or playing with his toys, just to make sure she wasn't alone. One rainy evening, everything caught up to her. The house was dark except for the small living room lamp. The rain tapped softly against the windows and Emily sat curled up on the couch, scrolling through her phone even though she wasn't really reading anything. Her thoughts kept drifting to the past mistakes, arguments, the quiet distance that had grown between her and her ex-husband. She tried to shake it off, but her chest felt tight. She felt lost. Liam walked into the room carrying the soft grey blanket she used every winter. Without saying anything, he placed it gently over her shoulders. His small hands smoothed the fabric, and he looked at her with quiet concern. "Mom," he said softly, "you don't have to pretend you're okay. I'm here." The simple kindness in his voice hit her harder than any argument or heartbreak. She pulled him into a hug, and for the first time in weeks, she let her tears fall without trying to hide them. Liam didn't pull away. He held on to her, small but steady, like he understood everything without needing to hear the details. Later that night, after Liam went to bed, Emily stepped outside to take a breath. The air was cool and smelled like rain. She walked to the mailbox more out of habit than anything else, checking for bills or letters she already expected. As she closed it, she felt someone step onto the shared sidewalk. It was her new neighbor, Andrew Harley. He had moved in next door only a few months earlier. She had spoken to him a few times, short, polite greetings, but she had never allowed herself to notice him deeply. He was in his late 30s, tall with calm eyes, someone who carried a quiet strength. Tonight, in the dim porch light, he looked at her with gentle curiosity. "Long day?" he asked, his voice soft and respectful. She tried to smile, even though her eyes were still slightly red. "Something like that." Andrew didn't pry or ask questions. He simply nodded, like someone who understood that not every pain needed to be explained. He stood beside her for a few seconds, listening to the rain. That short moment, just the two of them sharing the quiet, felt strangely comforting. It wasn't romantic or dramatic. It was just human. And that was something Emily didn't realize she needed until then. When she walked back inside, she felt a little less alone. She didn't know if it was because of Liam's small act of love or the unexpected warmth in Andrew's voice. Maybe both. Either way, something had shifted, even if only slightly. She wasn't healed, but for the first time since her marriage ended, she felt like maybe she could be. The next few days moved quickly. Emily focused on work, school drop-offs, and trying to find pieces of normal life again. She still had moments where the sadness returned suddenly, but every time she looked at Liam, she felt grounded. His presence made her stronger, even on the days she barely felt like getting out of bed. and every now and then, she saw Andrew outside watering his small backyard plants, carrying groceries, taking out the trash. Their interactions were brief but warm. A small wave, a shared smile, a simple good morning. But each one felt like a reminder that there were still kind people around her. People who didn't expect anything from her. People who just existed gently in her world. What Emily didn't realize yet was that these small moments, Liam's quiet support and Andrew's steady presence, was slowly pulling her out of the darkness she thought she'd never escape. A new beginning was forming around her, soft but real, waiting for the right moment to unfold. And while she wasn't ready to admit it, life was preparing to move forward again. She just had to trust that she wasn't walking alone anymore. The days after that quiet evening at the mailbox felt different for Emily. Nothing dramatic happened, but there was a gentle shift inside her. She still struggled with the weight of her recent separation, but the loneliness wasn't as sharp as before. Liam kept her busy with school projects and basketball practices, and every now and then, she would catch a glimpse of Andrew outside watering his plants, fixing something in his garage, or stepping out for an early morning jog. Their small interactions became tiny moments she unexpectedly looked forward to. One afternoon, Emily returned home from work feeling drained. Her co-workers had been kind, but the office felt louder and heavier than usual. She wanted nothing more than silence. As she sat on her porch steps to catch her breath, she noticed Andrew walking up the driveway, carrying a box of tools. He paused when he saw her, reading the exhaustion in her face instantly. "You look like you've had one of those days," he said with a hint of a smile. She let out a tired laugh. "That obvious?" He nodded and sat next to her, not too close, but close enough to show he wasn't leaving. "If you ever want to talk, I don't mind listening," he said gently. Emily wasn't used to people offering comfort without expecting details or explanations. For a moment, she considered brushing it off, but something in his steady, honest expression made her soften. "I've just been trying to hold everything together," she admitted quietly. "Some days feel harder than others." "You don't have to be strong all the time," he replied. "It's okay to have days where everything feels heavy." His words were simple, but they landed exactly where she needed them. She didn't pour out her entire story, but she shared enough for him to understand she was hurting. Andrew didn't interrupt or try to offer solutions. He just listened, and that alone eased something inside her. A few minutes later, Liam came running out with a basketball in his hands. "Mom, can I ask Andrew to play with me?" he said excitedly. Emily turned to Andrew. "Only if you want to," she said. Andrew smiled and stood up. "I'd love to." Liam's laughter filled the driveway as they tossed the ball back and forth. Emily watched from the porch, noticing how naturally Andrew interacted with her son. He wasn't trying too hard or acting like a replacement father. He was simply present, patient and kind. Liam seemed lighter around him, happier, like he finally had someone who added a little brightness to their small family. Later that week, Emily and Andrew ran into each other again, this time at the grocery store. She was looking at different pasta sauces, completely lost in thought, when she heard someone laugh softly behind her. "Trying to make a big decision?" Andrew teased. She turned, surprised but happy to see him. "You'd think picking tomato sauce would be easy, but apparently not today." "Let me help," he said, reaching for a jar. "This one is the least dramatic." She laughed, a real laugh, one she hadn't heard from herself in a long time. For a few moments they walked through the aisles together, talking about everything and nothing: favorite foods, weekend plans, silly memories. It felt unexpectedly natural, like they were two old friends catching up after years apart. When they parted ways, Emily realized she had enjoyed the ordinary moment more than she expected. Life felt less overwhelming when she wasn't trying to face it alone. But even as things grew lighter, the shadows of her past still lingered. That same evening, while she was helping Liam with homework, her phone rang. The screen lit up with a name she didn't want to see her ex-husband. Her tightened. She didn't want to talk to him, but she also didn't want to ignore him completely. She stepped into the hallway and answered with a careful tone. He sounded polite, almost too polite. He said he wanted to talk about the future, which instantly put pressure on her chest. Even hearing his voice brought back memories she had been trying to heal from arguments that lasted too long. Promises that faded, long nights where she felt invisible. She kept the call short. But the moment she hung up, her hands were shaking. The old sadness she thought she had pushed away returned fiercely, leaving her breathless. Andrew happened to be outside walking his dog when he saw her through the window. She had her arms wrapped around herself, staring at the floor like the world had tilted suddenly. He stopped at the gate, unsure if he should approach or give her space. After a moment, he gently called out, "Emily? Everything okay?" She turned toward him with eyes that looked as if they were holding back an entire storm of emotions. "I'm fine," she tried to say, but her voice cracked at the edges. Andrew didn't push. He simply looked at her with quiet concern, and that alone felt both comforting and dangerously close to breaking her open again. She didn't know if she wanted to explain what happened. She didn't know if she was ready. All she knew was that the past she had been trying to escape had resurfaced, and Andrew had witnessed the moment. She nearly fell apart. And that changed everything moving forward. In the days after her ex-husband's unexpected call, Emily felt her emotions slipping back and forth like a tide she couldn't control. One moment she felt strong, ready to face the future. The next, she felt pulled straight into old fears and memories she didn't want to relive. She tried to hide the tension from Liam, and she especially tried to hide it from Andrew. But both of them noticed in their own quiet ways. Andrew didn't ask questions about the phone call. Instead, he showed his worry through small, thoughtful actions, bringing her trash cans back from the curb, offering to pick up a few groceries, or just giving her a warm nod whenever their paths crossed. His presence became something steady in her unstable days. But Emily also sensed him stepping back a little, unsure if she needed space. Or maybe he thought she was slipping away from him. One evening, Liam had a school event and art show he had been excited about for weeks. Emily got ready quickly, putting on a soft blue sweater that made her feel calm. When they arrived at the school, Liam ran ahead to find his classmates, leaving Emily standing alone in the hallway, looking at colourful drawings taped to the walls. She was proud of him. He had shown so much strength during such a heavy time. Then she heard a familiar voice. "Hey, Emily." She turned and found Andrew standing a few steps away, smiling in that gentle way he always did. She hadn't expected to see him there, but she felt her chest loosen the moment she saw him. "My niece has artwork in the show," he explained. "Didn't know you were coming too." Emily smiled. "Liam has a painting here." They walked together through the crowded hallway, stopping at Liam's piece, a bright, cheerful drawing of a sunset. Emily felt a warmth in her heart when she noticed that Liam had drawn himself and his mom sitting together on a hill, watching the sky. No sadness, just them. "He really loves you," Andrew said quietly. "Anyone can see that." Emily nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "He's been my strength through everything." They walked slowly toward the cafeteria where refreshments were set up. The atmosphere was light, people chatting, kids laughing, but a deep calm settled over Emily. She didn't feel as overwhelmed as she had yesterday. And she didn't feel alone. Maybe it was simply the comfort of being near someone who didn't expect anything from her. When Liam ran off with his friends again, Andrew and Emily found themselves standing near the windows, watching the school parking lot glow under the evening lights. That's when Andrew finally spoke the words he had been holding for weeks. "Emily, can I tell you something?" he asked, his voice steady but quieter than usual. She nodded. He took a small breath, not dramatic, just honest. "I care about you," he said. "More than I thought I would. And more than I planned to." For a second, the world seemed to pause. Not in a shocking way, but in a slow, gentle way, as if her heart needed a moment to understand what he meant. She hadn't expected a confession that night. She wasn't sure she was ready for one either. Still, something inside her softened. Being near Andrew had brought her comfort she hadn't felt in a long time. His kindness, his patience, the way he understood her without her needing to explain everything. It all meant more than she ever said out loud. But before she could answer him, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and froze. Her ex-husband had messaged again. A simple line asking if they could talk soon. The familiar anxiety rushed back into her chest before she could control it. Andrew saw the shift in her expression. He didn't need to read the message. He knew. He stepped back slightly, his eyes dimming with understanding and a hint of doubt. "It's okay," he said softly. "You don't have to say anything." "No, it's not," Emily started, but her voice wavered. She hated that the past had interrupted the moment. She hated that Andrew now looked unsure, like he had crossed a line. He gave her a small, polite smile. "Take your time. I didn't mean to overwhelm you." The air between them changed, not in a harsh way, but in a fragile way. Emily wanted to reach for him, to tell him that his confession didn't scare her, that it actually warmed something deep inside her. But her heart was tangled in too many old memories, and she didn't want to say something she couldn't follow through on. Liam rushed back at that moment, excited to show her another painting. Emily forced a smile and gave him her full attention, but she still felt the weight of Andrew's confession hanging in the air. When she glanced toward the window, she saw him quietly slipping out of the cafeteria. He didn't look upset, just thoughtful, like a man who didn't want to add pressure to someone already holding too much. That night, as Emily lay in bed, she kept replaying his words. "I care about you." Simple. Honest. Kind. She felt something deep inside her shift again. Not out of fear, but out of recognition. Andrew wasn't part of her old life. He wasn't tied to her pain or her past. He was a possibility, a new beginning waiting patiently for her to step toward it. But before she could move forward, she needed to face the emotions she had spent months burying. And that journey, she knew, wouldn't be easy. Still, she wasn't as afraid anymore, because someone unexpected had shown her that healing didn't have to happen alone. And that love, even the quiet kind, arrives exactly when the heart is ready to notice it. The night after the school event felt heavier than Emily expected. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Andrew's soft confession, and the way he stepped back the moment her past interrupted their moment. She hated that her ex-husband's message had shaken her so quickly, almost pulling her into the emotional storm she had worked so hard to calm. She kept replaying the scene, Andrew's warm eyes turning unsure, his gentle smile fading into quiet distance. The truth was simple. She cared about him too. But caring scared her. Trusting someone again felt like stepping across a bridge she wasn't sure was strong enough to hold her weight. She had spent months trying to rebuild her life, brick by brick, only to feel it shake whenever the past returned. The next morning started quietly. Liam was eating cereal at the kitchen table when he looked up, studying her face. "Mom, did something happen last night?" Emily hesitated. "Why do you ask?" "You look like you're thinking too much," he said with innocent honesty. She sat beside him, brushing a hand through his hair. "I'm okay. Just figuring out a few things." Liam squinted like he was trying to solve a mystery. "Is it about Andrew?" His question surprised her. Why do you say that? Because you smile more when he's around, Liam said simply. And you breathe easier. You look like you're not carrying everything by yourself. Emily felt something soft and warm rise inside her chest. Sometimes kids understand emotions better than adults. Liam wasn't judging her, and he wasn't pushing her. He was just telling the truth he had seen in her eyes. She sighed. I just don't know if I'm ready for something new. Liam shrugged in his calm, wise way. Maybe you don't have to be ready for everything. You can start slow, like walking instead of running. His words settled deep in her heart. She had been trying so hard to protect him, but she never realized how much he was helping her. The strength he showed, the small gestures, the way he always sat by her when she seemed sad. Liam had carried her through the hardest months without ever being asked out later that afternoon. While cleaning the living room, Emily kept thinking about Andrew. She remembered how he listened without trying to fix everything, how he never pushed her, how he treated Liam with kindness and patience. He wasn't trying to replace anyone or fill a role. He was just himself, and that was enough to make her feel safe. She realized something important.